Ryan Blaney becomes a NASCAR Cup Series champion. Ross Chastain smashes a watermelon on the front straightaway, and NASCAR says goodbye to one of its greatest drivers ever. Let's talk about NASCAR's championship race out in the desert. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about the NASCAR Championship race at the Phoenix Raceway where Ryan Blaney wins his first NASCAR Cup Series Championship, and a huge moment for him. We'll talk about Ross Chastain winning the race, a lot of beating and banging for the win in this race. We'll break all that down. We'll break down Kevin Harvick's final ride and his amazing career, and we'll talk about what happened to the other Championship 3 that did not win this championship. Let's go ahead and break down NASCAR in Phoenix, and we have to start out by talking about the big story, the NASCAR Cup Series champion in 2023, and that is Ryan Blaney. What an incredible season, what an incredible playoff run, was able to capitalize on big moments, winning at Martinsville, winning at Talladega in the playoffs, winning the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte earlier on this year. A huge season for Ryan Blaney, a huge comeback season for Ryan Blaney from a year ago. He was able to hold off Kyle Larson in an epic late race battle. Kyle Larson gained multiple spots on pit road. Ryan Blaney lost multiple spots on pit road on the final pit stop with a caution with under 35 to go. Kyle Busch spun, causing the final caution of the race of the season, and that put Ryan Blaney in a position where he had to go chase Kyle Larson, and then he was able to get by him after an epic battle. Kyle Larson is not an easy driver to get around. Kyle Larson is a wheelman. He knows how to race these cars. He knows how to stay out front, and it's especially easier to stay out front with these types of race cars where they're more even and there is more dirty air at these type of racetracks. But Ryan Blaney was able to find a way around Kyle Larson, find a way around the 5 car, take the lead in the championship battle, and win the NASCAR Cup Series Championship. While that was going on, Ross Chastain was leading the race and won the race, and we'll break that down a little bit more in a bit as well. But what a season for Ryan Blaney. An incredible run tonight. Able to hold off the other championship 3, especially William Byron, where William Byron was really fast early on in the race. It looked like he was going to be the favorite to go for this championship. We knew Blaney was fast all day, right? I mean, we knew that he was running the second fastest lap times of the race behind guys like Harvick, sometimes behind guys like Chastain, but they weren't in the championship hunt. Blaney was. He was running the fastest lap times, looked to have the best handling race car, and he run around in the top 10 all day. Remember, he started 14th, I believe, in this race, was able to slowly get up front, and finally got by William Byron, then had to get by Larson at the end, was able to do so, and was able to hold off Kyle Larson, run every lap perfect in the closing laps of this race, and win his first NASCAR Cup Championship. And this is a big moment for him. We can take a look. I want to take a look at Ryan Blaney one season ago. I want to look at the championship last year for Joey Logano. Logano wins the championship. Ryan Blaney had the fastest car. It sounded like Roger Penske was more on the side of, hey, let's just let Blaney finish second here because we don't want anything to go wrong with Logano's championship. And Blaney was very obviously frustrated at the season he had. Not necessarily at Penske, not necessarily about that race solely, but he was frustrated. Winless season in 2022. And then we go into the offseason. I believe it was guys, or maybe it was earlier this year, I think Kyle Petty made a comment that Ryan Blaney has not fully reached his potential, and I think he reached his potential tonight. The comments from Kyle Petty made a lot of sense at that time. He, I think, compared him to a Casey Kane, somebody that has a lot of talent but has not capitalized on it yet, has not made it to a championship 4, has not won a championship, and now that narrative around Ryan Blaney has changed. He's no longer a driver that wins sometimes. He's no longer a driver that wins maybe a couple of races a season. He's now a driver that is a champion and a championship threat and contender moving forward in the 12 car for Penske, and that is a big deal, and that changes the narrative around Ryan Blaney's career for sure. Winning that championship is a huge step for him, and I'm proud of what Ryan Blaney was able to do all season long. It was incredible. 18 top 10s, a top 10 for over half the season. Went through a summer slump, was able to overcome that. I mentioned the the Coca-Cola 600 earlier this season. That's a major race. That's a crown jewel race. Was able to win that. Come close to winning other races this season. Winning big at Talladega in the playoffs. Winning big last week at Martinsville in the playoffs to get to this spot. And winning today, or finishing second today, to win his first Cup title. What a race by Ryan Blaney. I remember him driving the Wood Brothers car. I remember when he beat Kyle Busch at Pocono. I believe it was 2017 in the 21 Wood Brothers car. And that's when we all kind of opened up our eyes and said, this guy knows how to drive race cars. Today, tonight, Ryan Blaney finally reached that full potential, winning a Cup championship. There's no doubt in my mind that he can win multiple, but right now he is a one-time NASCAR Cup champion, and I think that is a huge step for Ryan Blaney. Now, let's talk about what happened to the other Final 4 contenders. that was Kyle Larson finishing right behind him in the third position. Unfortunately, Kyle Larson just couldn't capitalize, couldn't get by him. Ryan Blaney was the faster car for what looked to be a majority of the day, especially late in the race. Kyle Larson was able to get out front on the pit stop. We thought this was going to be a repeat of the 2021 championship where Larson sort of won it on a pit stop or was put in a really good position on a final race pit stop. That was not the case today. The final pit stop was not enough for Kyle Larson over the 12 car, and Kyle Larson comes up short, finishing second this year in the standings. I could say the same for William Byron. William Byron, I believe he led the most laps out front as far as the championship 4 goes, led the entire first stage of the race. Remember, he sat on pole today, was super fast all day long. Rudy Fugle, the crew chief, trying to keep him calm, trying to keep him in the mindset of winning this championship, trying to give him confidence, but it slowly continued to fade away with guys like Chris Buescher trying to get by him and others, and eventually William Byron just run out of steam and run out of the car, able to win the championship. But nonetheless, very successful season for William Byron. William Byron is still very young. I still will say this. I think William Byron is going to be the next driver to win multiple championships. When I say that, I mean like 3 or 4 minimum. I really think William Byron has the potential to do that. I think he's going to be in the championship 4 for years to come. I think he'll be in it next year, the year after that. I think he's going to be one that is in it very consistently. A very talented William Byron. His first championship is on the horizon, I believe, after seeing what he's been able to do this season, his racing style. He sticks to his racing style, and that works for him. There's aggressive racers, there's more preserved racers. Byron's probably more on the preserved side, but that works for him. He reminds me a lot of Jimmy Johnson. I'm not saying he's as good as Jimmy Johnson. I'm not saying he's the 7-time champ Jimmy Johnson is, but as far as racing style goes, that reminds me of William Byron. 6 race win seasons, very impressive for sure. Christopher Bell, unfortunately for him, was running up front, trying to find some speed, was definitely not the favorite about halfway through the race. Lap 111, a rotor explodes on the 20 car. He goes in, slams the wall, completely eliminating any chance that Christopher Bell has of winning the championship, finishes 4th in this year's standings. Very unfortunate for Christopher Bell, but I still would say a very successful season. Once again, Christopher Bell has sort of been a more inconsistent driver as far as finishing this season alone, but was able to capitalize in the playoffs, make it all the way through the playoffs, and make the Final Four for the second year in a row. Christopher Bell, another one of those drivers. I think there is a championship on the horizon for him as well. The 2 championship appearances in a row, that's very impressive. It's hard to make the championship 4. Most drivers don't make the championship 4. Only 4 of them do a year, and he's made it 2 years in a row. Would not be surprised at all to see him make a 3rd in a row going into next season. We'll have to see if he can clean up a few mistakes. He's been fast all year. He's trying to take the crown as the top Joe Gibbs Racing driver that was once held by Kyle Busch, and he's trying to take that spot away from maybe a Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex, and we'll have to see how that continues to evolve for years to come. But incredibly impressive season by Christopher Bell, getting multiple wins. Now, I do want to talk about the race winner. I don't want to overshadow the race winner because the championship battle, we still got to see a watermelon smash. 4th career win for the driver, Ross Chastain of the number 1 car. Incredible run today. We had 4 championship drivers. Those 4 teams go all the way. They stay up all night running simulation data. They stay up looking at the SMT data. They put in the extra effort on those race cars all season long, but Trackhouse was able to put their effort in, work just as hard, if not harder, and go out there and win today at Phoenix and beat the championship 4 in the championship race. That is very impressive from the driver's standpoint and very impressive from the team's Trackhouse standpoint as well. Their season was over. They weren't going to go out there and win a championship, but they knew there was still a race win on the line, and they went out there and won the race. Very impressive by Ross Chastain to go out there and do it, and he did not let up for the other championship drivers. And I've said this for years. I don't think that this is a race that the other 36 cars or the other 32 cars or however many else cars are in the race should just give up on. I think they should still race for the race win, and that's what we saw today. This is the first time that the knockout round playoff format has been in place that the winner of the race was not also the champion was today. So the last time we can go back was before the knockout round playoff era. The bracket playoff era was 2013 when Jimmy Johnson won the championship and Denny Hamlin won the race at Miami. So that's how far back we'd had to go. Wow, things certainly changed in 10 years, right? But definitely a very impressive run by Ross Chastain, a driver that we saw sort of fall off going into the playoffs, going into the second half of the summer portion. So good to see him get back in victory lane. And this is a big statement for him. Getting another victory, making this a multiple win season. Again, that's 2 multiple win seasons in a row for Chastain. I think that's a bigger statement than we're realizing and recognizing because of the championship battles as well. With that being said, I want to go through the top 10 talking about the results. Once again, we had Ross Chastain winning the race, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, William Byron, your champion championship drivers finishing in those positions. But we had Chris Buescher, had a very fantastic run. I think he was one that sort of laid off a little bit at the end, knowing he wasn't going to get the race win, doesn't want to go up there and mess up the championship battle between the championship 4 or what would be 3 at the end of the race. But a fast run for Chris Buescher, also a very impressive season for him. Once again, another one of those drivers I'd say is very consistently inside of the top 5, inside the top 10 this season. A 3-win season for him. Very impressive. Was able to go up there and finish 5th. Martin Truex Jr. Once again, we talk about how much he fell off going into the playoffs. Was able to do better last week, but finally got back in the top 10 today. 6th place finish for Martin Truex Jr. What was also a good season, unfortunately for him, fell off a ton going into the playoffs. You can look at Ryan. I want to go back to Ryan Blaney. You can talk about how maybe he fell off in the summer. Well, when the playoffs started, he excelled, and drivers like Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, even Ross Chastain before today fell off a ton when they earlier on looked like championship favorites. So unfortunately for him, Martin Truex Jr. finishes in the 6th position tonight. In Phoenix, Kevin Harvick in his final ride gets his 21st, I believe, top 10 finish at Phoenix in a row. That's like 10 years in a row. Kevin Harvick has finished in the top 10 at Phoenix, won a majority of those races, won a lot of races at Phoenix Raceway. Kevin Harvick has. This is his best racetrack. Kevin Harvick is a legend at Phoenix Raceway and a legend in the car. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. Denny Hamlin finishing in the top 10, solid 8th place run for Hamlin. Michael McDowell, another driver that's had an impressive season, finishing the top 10 a lot, especially at the road courses, but today at an oval was able to finish in the 9th position. Bubba Wallace, another driver that's really stepped up this season. You go to the first half of the year, was lacking speed, was able to sneak into the playoffs as the 16th seed, and was able to go a couple of rounds into the playoffs, was not eliminated in that first round like many probably predicted he would be, and another solid run, a very solid run for Bubba Wallace. The playoffs this season and an entire season, another top 10 run for Bubba Wallace. Another driver you can look at a few years ago where he would be nowhere near the top 10 at all. So a solid run for the 2311 team as well. And I do want to talk about, that's the top 10 of the race. I broke down the final 4 where everybody finished, but I do have to talk about NASCAR's legendary driver that is retiring after this season. We've sort of been talking about him all year long. That is Kevin Harvick, and I cannot say enough about Kevin Harvick and his final post-race interview. What an interview, right? I mean, talked about how he played tough guy so much, but he's a very emotional guy. He cares about people. He respects a lot of people, and he said that he could walk into any hauler right now and be welcomed into it. That makes you choke up a little bit, because Kevin Harvick, once again, like he said, always played tough guy. I remember growing up watching Harvick in the 29 car when I was really young, and then watching him move into the 4 car. He was the guy. He was the tough guy. And if he didn't like something, he would say it, whether that was to your face, if it was something he didn't like about the race, the way NASCAR was handling something, he would say that to the media, and you have to respect that from Kevin Harvick. He said what he thought, and I think that's very respectful from Kevin Harvick, and I can respect that. I also want to go way back in time. I was unable to witness this as a fan, but taking over for the late Dale Earnhardt, the way that he was able to professionally take over that ride, get the win in Atlanta, one of the biggest moments in NASCAR history, winning in that 29 car. Much respect for Kevin Harvick. Dale Jr. had a lot of good words to say about him as well, how he handled a very high-pressure situation. I couldn't imagine what it would be like with the pressure on your shoulders of taking over that race car. Was able to be very successful in it. Then moves over to Stewart-Haas Racing, to a Chevrolet, is able to win a NASCAR champion, the 2014 championship. I remember that championship run was very impressive that season. What a career for Kevin Harvick. No doubt one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history. Once again, 2014 champion and a NASCAR 60-time winner, and also a Daytona 500 winner. So very successful career for Kevin Harvick, and I can't wait to see him in the booth next year. I hope he does good in the Fox booth. I hope he breaks down things and is able to analyze things and help the booth maybe be a little bit better than they currently are. There seems to be a lot of complaints about the Fox booth right now. Hopefully Harvick is able to excel that, make that even better than it is. So certainly looking forward to Kevin Harvick's next step. It was fun watching him win those races at Michigan and put his kid in the car and all that. Definitely a lot of memories for me watching Kevin Harvick. Unfortunately beat Kyle Busch a lot of times, but it was always fun watching him. I think he won 8 races in 2018, 8 races in 2020. A lot of fun watching Kevin Harvick's career, and I'm glad I was able to witness a lot of it as a fan for almost half of his career, at least over a quarter of his career. So very impressive. I wanted to mention that. Also, I want to say a great season. I was able to grow this show a little bit. I was able to start writing for the Daily Downforce. Some great folks over there as well. What a season. You go back to the Daytona 500. A lot of fun watching that. What a race that was. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. My favorite moment from this year was probably the Chicago Street Race, and I would not have thought that going into this season. That was one race I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I felt awesome. I felt excited after watching that race in Chicago back in the summer. Definitely one of my favorite moments of many this season. So what a great season. I'm glad everybody was able to watch the show. Hope everybody enjoyed the show this year. And I'll for sure be back for more episodes of Dirty Air for the off season, for breaking news, and of course I'll be ready for the Clash in the Daytona 500 that's just over 100 days away. We'll break all that down as well. So that's it. That's all there is to talk about following NASCAR in 2023. Congrats to Ross Chastain on the win. Congrats to Harvick on a career. And of course, congratulations to Roger Penske and Ryan Blaney on winning the 2023 championship, back-to-back championships for Roger Penske. And that's it. And of course, about Kyle Busch spinning at the end of this race. Let's get rowdy.